Hey, welcome to the Stringjoy Show. I am Ryan, and my friend Ian Allison is here. He thought he was able to come over and not get stuck on one of these videos. But Ian Allison, you are with Scott's Bass Lessons. You are touring all over the world playing bass. You play bass all of the time.
I do. I love to play the bass all the time.
When I have bass questions, this is one of the guys that I typically go to, but you stepped by today, and so I wanted to talk about different scale lengths of basses and why you might choose one over the other. I understand there are 3 different tiers of bass lengths.
Yes. Seems like, in terms of 4-string basses, there are sort of 3 things. There's 34, which is a standard scale. There's 32, which is considered medium scale. And there aren't a whole lot of those instruments out there, I don't feel. There's not a lot of examples of them, but you have one.
I do.
You have one today.
I happen to have one here, briefly.
That's pretty cool. And then, of course, there's 30. And 34 is the classic Fender vibe. Obviously, this is a Scythe, really cool P-bass. But when you think of a P-bass, jazz bass thing, that's typically a 34-inch scale, right? That's standard, regular scale. But then 30 is the Mustang, the Music Master, the Hofner, the Guild Starfire, anything Fender Coronado, anything in kind of hollow body, plunky, you think Carol Kay, or, Justin Meldal Johnson's signature, right, Mustang.
Yep. That's
the classic short scale. But then 32 is in the middle, and I actually haven't played many 32s because they're just they're not out there as much. And so I'm excited for this one.
What's the deal with backlash against short scale basses?
That's a great question. I think that bass players often have this sort of inferiority complex around well, we can do stuff cool. We can do it too. We can do it good and better. And there's lower strings and higher strings. And on the case of extended range basses, there's 35-inch scales, Dingwalls. Oh, those go down to, 37-inch B strings. So bigger, almost sort of this bigger is better vibe in bass world. More gold hardware, the finest appointments.
Right.
You know what I mean? Hardwood, brambleberry, elderwood from the depths of the forest.
Right.
And so that, I think, sort of seeped its way, at least in my generation or my group of friends. That was sort of the vibe. And then Music Master, 30-inch scale. No, it's little. It's smaller. That's not what we want for bass. It needs to be bigger.
It's almost like that. It's almost like that period in the 70s where everybody thought heavier was better.
Yes, for sure. And it's not that it isn't. There's sometimes those, you were just telling me playing all these gigs with a 13-pound Les Paul. Those are awesome. They have a vibe and a sound and a thing. And I even love the way that really heavy guitars or basses balance.
Sure.
Because they're never headstock heavy. But it doesn't mean that they're better, right? And so, on an instrument like this, which this is this beautiful Scythe P-bass, what do they call this? This is a
OH-16, I believe.
Old hand?
16, yeah.
Hand
OH-16 for... Yeah,
so
Scythe
cool.
guitar is out of Kansas City.
Yeah, and this to me... It's familiar. It's really nice and even. Flats on it, of course. It's what we're all used to. It's sort of what we're used to hearing.
It's the SM57.
Yeah, for sure. It's industry standard. That's a really great analogy. It's the or what is this in guitar world to you?
It's the Strat. Yeah. It's the Strat. To me, it's kind of the jazz bass and the P bass are the Strat and the Les Paul of guitar world because those were the basses.
Yes. And this is what everybody knows. It's what everybody feels comfortable with. For me too, as a bigger guy, I'm sort of self-conscious about my weight and about my shape And so like when I play a standard scale length instrument
Sure.
and I see a photo or I see myself in the mirror pre-rock show, dude, I'm like, yep, that's it.
Yep.
And then I'll put on like a short scale instrument and it feels like fat guy with a tiny bass, you know? So
I have the same exact problem except opposite direction. Like I've always wanted a Firebird.
Yes.
But anytime I hold a Firebird, I look like a kid with like daddy's jacket on.
Right. Yes. Where it's like, yes. And I've talked to some friends of mine who feel that way too. And for me, it's like the bigger the bass, the better. But that's just my own body image issues. Like, it has like nothing to do with the instruments.
Kind of a warmer sound, would you say? The attack seems less prominent.
Yeah, maybe so.
What are some of the other characteristics that you would say? Like you hear something, you go, that's a Fender. Like what are the sounds that you're hearing?
There is like a woodiness, and Fenders to me always have this sort of like big transient and then a slight fall off versus something that's neck through like a Spectre, or right, sometimes basses that are neck through with active electronics, almost sort of regardless of scale, have this sort of evenness, almost a compressed quality where the transient of the note is similar in intensity, I don't know if that's the right word, or volume or like wave shape.
Sure.
You see it in a DAW.
Yeah.
To its tail. So a Fender has this sort of like bang and then a steep fall off, and really accentuated
so like
with
like a sharp knee down.
Yeah.
And
And it's not necessarily on every instrument,
Sure.
right, or on every note, but there's this sort of like you hear and then the sound starts to die. And on this bass is really even and lovely. Like it's actually, but there's still like a vintage character to it. And I will say this, I thought that short scale instruments were inferior for a very long time until I played them, and they have a different character. We're going to show that to you today. But the thing that I have never loved about a standard scale instrument, almost no matter who makes it, is the way that the notes on the G string sound. Like this B sounds pingy and small versus, play with a pick too. This is better. This is even better. And I don't know if we have, right? So there's all these different timbres. Same note. And a short scale instrument, because of literally like the shortening of the scale, this note here sounds bigger because the scale length is shorter. Sort of, in a piano, right? If you see in a piano, the treble strings are on a very shorter scale, and then the bass strings are on this monster long scale. So I love playing short scale instruments on like the D and G string almost in any register. They'd sound, the notes here, where this sounds sort of trebly, like all standard scale basses, but on a short scale, maybe even a medium scale, we'll see, they read more like a bass instrument to me. Okay, so we switched to a short scale.
We did.
Bass.
It was like, we forgot to do the genie thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are.
we switched. And are we allowed to say the gaff taped brand?
Sure, absolutely. It's just, it's an Epiphone. This is a really, really cheap Epiphone viola bass that I bought a number of years ago for $150, and it ended up being really great, so I've held on to it. This is a 30-inch scale, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, and it feels and sounds like one to me. So again, with a pick, like right here, this range of the bass on a short scale sounds so even. I wouldn't ever play that figure, and I'm playing with a pick. I'll play with fingers too, right? But I would never play like a Motown bass line like this on a long scale bass or a 34-inch standard scale bass, because it, as we heard, it sounds, it's just a little pingy up there, a little brittle sounding. Yeah. I would probably play it here. And this sounds cool on a short scale as well.
Do you think that's what like somebody like Jamerson was doing? Jamerson wasn't playing up there? Because I mean, he's got some thick high notes as well.
He had big, thick strings and sponge, right? A bunch of muting. And so he was sort of, I think that Jamerson just went into the store. He was an upright player, right? And he went into the store and he just picked up, he just was like, I'll take this right? And it was like the bass that they had. So it wasn't like, oh, the 62 P bass, because in 62,
it was just a P bass.
It was just the bass that was in the shop.
Yeah.
So there was no sort of pomp, or like the golden era of Fender. Just no one knew about that yet. Because it was like around them.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Jamerson ever played a short scale. I'm not sure. If you know, in the comments, let us know. I don't know if Jamerson ever played like a Mustang, but it seems like he would have been into it. I think the cool thing that I just didn't know for so long is that these instruments sound so cool up high. There's like a weight to these notes on the D and G string that still almost have like enough low end content to make it feel like a bass. And then down low, it's maybe not as like clear and like sounding, right? It's a little more tubby.
Yeah. And that's what I really like about it. Yeah. Like, I like a farty low end.
Okay. I like that for you.
But no, I mean, like, when I think of like a really tight low end, I think of heavier music and really kind of getting that kind of thing.
For sure.
And I come from a world that's more mushy.
Yeah.
Is better when it comes to those low ends.
Yeah, cool. Like Beatles.
Yeah.
Carol Kay, the Beach Boys. I mean, like, whenever I get on a bass like this, I always want to play. And that figure just doesn't sound the same on like a standard scale bass. It's really cool. So all the stuff that you play. So I'm palm muting right now with a pick and a little bit of spring reverb.
Cool. Yeah. So spongier low end, a little heftier in the middle areas. Sounds really good up high.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the story here is I told Ian not to bring any basses because I told him I had the short scale and long scale covered. What I thought I had the short scale covered with was this Sarek bass that's here because I just did a demo on it. And I found out when he arrived that 32 inches is not short scale.
That's right.
Medium scale.
Medium scale, yeah. And I love that Sarek does all three. So, I mean, I think, I might be wrong about this, and you might know.
This one, they offer 32 and 34. Other models like the Sacramento, you can get in 30, 32, and 34.
Yeah, but this is the Lincoln, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, this is such a cool bass. Now, so I don't, let's see. Ooh. I don't even know what's going on with the pickups, but I like it.
It's yeah. So if you go all the way down, so that's going to be your neck or your bridge, then your neck, then I believe series, and then parallel.
And so again, it doesn't have like the biggest point on the notes down low. But a little pointier.
A little bit pointier than the other one, yeah.
Yes. But also, I mean, if anybody is like crying foul about strings, we get it. These aren't all the same strings. Did we change all the strings to be the same exact string before this demo?
We did not.
We did not do that. I mean, really, you have to take my word for it. This feels like a combo. And if you just hear the open E, you hear the top of that note. Yep. It's not as pillowy as the 30, but it's not quite as like, as the 34, right?
Yeah, it has more definition.
Yes.
But not as much definition.
Yeah, exactly. Right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle.
Like a 32-inch scale bass.
Like a 32-inch scale bass should be. Now let's see. So if we play this figure. Now Now see, to me, when I'm trying to palm mute, it's getting a little pingy. So I might want to choose to left-hand mute on this bass, where I'm actually using these fingers to mute the note here. Now, and again, this range right here, I'm like, if I were playing that line, I would choose to play it up here.
Definitely.
Right?
Feels more hearty.
Yes.
But it also, the thump is cool though too. So it's heartier, but there's also a really nice thump that you get on those.
Ooh, and yeah, I mean, it is. It's really a nice combo. Let's do the Carol K thing. Doesn't sound like a short scale,
no.
Right? Yeah, sounds a little more long scale. Something too about these hip shot bridges that always perplexes me a little bit is that the strings fall down in between these two sort of risers on the side. So if you're palm muting, you sort of are palm muting a little farther forward than on like a Fender style bridge. So it's harder for me to get that sort of like plunky 30-inch short scale vibe with this kind of bridge. But I mean, what if we're not going for that?
So yeah, you get the like the heft, and the heft and the warmth of the short scale, but also a little bit of that definition, which really makes that distortion sound super good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? So like even down low. But then when you come up high, I think it still reads bassy.
Okay.
I have an idea. I think that like sometimes guitar players wanting to play the bass, coming into playing the bass, don't want a giant 34-inch scale, right? Or maybe if your hands are a little bit smaller, or you feel like, I have to do this bass gig, and it needs to be sort of like a rock and roll thing. I don't want plunky. Right? Like a 32 might be the perfect thing for someone making the transition from guitar to bass that doesn't want to commit to like
that sound. Because I mean, that was my first bass, but I went with the one that looked most like a guitar. But I mean, if you make that decision, you are playing a short scale bass, and this will give you a toe or two in the 34-inch world. Without having to feel like it.
Yeah, for sure. And whenever you make a change, at least for me, if you're out there going like, oh, I don't know, like 4 inches, that's crazy, that's a lot. And I don't know if I'd get used to that. If you're really, comfortable in either like a short scale 30 or a standard long scale 34, and you're not sure about making that like jump because it feels very different. A 32 might be great as well. And I mean, these basses, I have a couple Cerex as well, and they're so lovely. And like, as we said, Jake does a 30, a 32, and a 34. You can get a variety of scales in a few of the different models. So bear that in mind.
Yeah, next time you're looking to spec one out, you might hit that 32-inch box.
Yep, exactly. That's right.
Well, hey, Ian, thank you so much for sticking around here. I know you were just going to swing on through, but thank you for spending time with me. And so until next time, we will see you when we see ya.